In this first section, we're going to start things off with addition, where we will be adding 1 and 2 digit numbers. By the end of this section, you will be very confident with addition. There won't be any addition problems you won't be able to solve. I recommend you get a few sheets of paper and pencil and write out the problems with me as I present them to you because it will be the very best way you'll be able to absorb the material. If at any time you miss something or don't understand something I say or do, you could always rewind the video or send me an email and I'd be happy to help you. Let's get started. For our first problem, we will be adding 2 plus 4. Now, I'm going to assume you may have never done addition or you haven't practiced for a long time. So let's briefly explore the concept of addition. So what does it mean when you're trying to add two things together, which in our case, it's 2 plus 4, but it can be 2 pencils plus 4 pencils or 2 cars plus 4 cars. I'm going to count with pencils to make things more visual for you. So when you see 2 plus 4, you're basically being asked, if you have 2 pencils and 4 pencils, how many do you have altogether or in total? So you start with your first number and begin to add by 1. 1, 2. Then you move on to your next set of numbers, or in this case, pencils. 3, 4, 5, 6. So in total, we have 6 pencils. So the answer to our problem, 2 plus 4, equals 6. Now that we have solved our first problem, let's get in the habit of writing out our problems out vertically on top of one another, because when we start adding 2 and 3 digit numbers, it will help to solve them much easier, as you'll see in a moment. I just want to make a quick point that whether the problem is written out vertically on top of one another like this, or written out horizontally like so, nothing changes. 2 plus 4 equals 6. Now, let's move on to the next problem, 4 plus 3. Again, most of the time, you'll be given the problem in this format. But as I mentioned before, let's place it on top of one another like so, because it makes it easier to solve when we have several digits. As we did before with the pencils, I want to repeat that so you can see how addition works visually, but you can use your fingers to count or anything else that helps you. The great thing about practicing is that with time, you'll be able to do it very easily. You won't need to count with your fingers. You just need to practice, as we will in this course, by solving a lot of problems. So again, let's bring out our pencils. For our first number, we have 4, so let's count up to 4. You can use your fingers to count, or you can do as I did when I was younger. I would draw circles on my paper, but to help you see things a little better, I'll use my pencils. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's move on to our next numbers. And since we have counted up to 4, all we need to do is keep adding 1 to our 4. So now, let's just think for a second. What comes after 4? The number 5. So we just count up from 4 since we are adding 3 more. So let's continue adding 1 to our 4 3 more times. 5, 6, 7. Your total answer is now 7 since you had 3 more pencils to count. In addition, you're basically just taking your first pile of things, it can be pencils, your fingers, or circles on your paper, and add it with the second pile or set of numbers. Now, let's move on to our next problem where we will be using slightly bigger numbers, 9 plus 6. Now, you can count with your fingers or draw circles on your paper. I'll use my pencils so you can see it visually and understand it better. So let's count our first set of numbers, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, Let's add our second set of numbers, 6 to 9, to get our answer. Since we're already at 9, we start from the next number after 9, which is 10, and count up from there. So let's continue. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Our total is 15. Great. If you're still not getting the hang of this, it's okay. You just have to keep practicing with me, and you'll see how good you become. For our next problem, we're going to ease our way into adding a one-digit number with a two-digit number. And I don't want this to scare you because the way I'll show you is going to make things very easy no matter how many numbers you're adding. So for our next problem, let's add 11 plus 4. Now, we can continue using our pencils to count or use our fingers as you may be doing, but as you start to add bigger numbers, it takes a lot of time to use your fingers or count objects like pencils. So I want to show you how you can easily solve problems with bigger numbers with ease. The way you solve such a problem is working your way from the right to the left. Another thing you need to keep in mind is that when you are adding a bigger and a smaller number, you want to place the bigger number on top and the smaller number on the bottom. Also, notice that since we have a double digit number on the top and a single digit number on the bottom, you need to always push or move the number all the way to the right and line it up with the furthest number to the right, which in this case, the smaller number is 4, so we place it all the way to the right under the 1. And you'll see that as we solve more problems. If at this point there is anything you don't understand, just keep working with me and I'll assure you it will make sense. So now, how do we go about solving this problem? Well, we can go about it in two ways. One way is you can count from the number 11 by starting at 11 and simply adding 4, which will give you the answer. A second way you can do it, and this is the way I recommend, is by adding the numbers from the right to the left, as I mentioned earlier. So let's take a look at how we can do that. First, you want to ask yourself, what is 1 plus 4? Which is much easier than trying to figure out what is 11 plus 4. And if you're trying to use your fingers, it's much easier to add 1 plus 4. So let's solve this problem. 1 plus 4 equals, if you use your fingers or count objects, you'll see that you'll arrive at 5. Now, since we're working from the right to the left, we move on to the second column. And in our second column, we have a number 1, but nothing on the bottom to add to the 1. We carry the 1 down and put it next to our 5, and we get our answer to the problem of 11 plus 4, which is 15. Great. If you've done everything I've shown you so far, you should be very proud of yourself. You're doing great. We're making good progress. For our next problem, we will be looking at 21 plus 7. I know the numbers are starting to look bigger, but please don't let this scare you. With the technique we learned, no matter how large the numbers become, we will still be able to solve our problems with ease. Just as we did before, we will be working from the right column to the left column. So let's look at the right column and start solving this problem. We have 1 plus 7, which if you add the 1 to the 7, you get 8. Now that we have solved our first column, we work our way to the left column and solve our second column. And as we've seen before, if in the second column there isn't a number below, you simply carry the number down. And when we carry our 2 down, we get 28, which is the answer to our problem, 21 plus 7. Great. Now let's move on to our next problem because I want you to get the hang of this, so we will be working on a lot of problems so you can get good practice. For our next problem, we're going to be looking at 51 plus 5. Again, don't let the big numbers intimidate you. The way in which we have been solving our problems helps us add numbers no matter how big they are. So let's start solving this problem by looking at the right column, 1 plus 5. You can use your fingers or you can do it in your head, which is going to give us 6. Now, we move on to the next column on the left, and since there is no number under the 5, we carry it down and get our total, which is 56. Great. Now, let's try something slightly different. For our next problem, and this is a problem that is very important that you understand what's going on, we're going to take a look at 13 plus 8. And as we've done before, we will be adding the right column first, then moving on to the left column. So first, let's add 8 plus 3, which gives us 11 if you start counting from 8 and add 3. Now, if you've noticed in all our other problems, when we added two numbers, we always got a single digit number as the answer. And now we have a double digit number, which is 11. But this is not the right thing to do. The basic rule is that when you are adding up two numbers in this format, if you get a single digit number, you put that single digit number down here, as we've been doing in all our previous problems. But if you get two digits like we get here when we add 3 plus 8, you will have to do something a little bit different, which is called carrying the number to the following column. So let's see how that's done. Again, let's do 3 plus 8, which is going to give us 11. But instead of writing the 11 down here, we're going to only write the number on the right side of the two-digit number. And the number on the left will come up here to the left column where we will add it with the number on the left column. And if this is a bit confusing, please don't worry. We will be practicing this a lot so you will understand exactly what's going on. Just make sure to keep following along with me and you'll see how easy this becomes. So now that we have added 3 plus 8 and got our answer of 11 and carried our 1, we can now add our numbers on the left side, which is simply going to be 1 plus 1. And the answer to that is going to be 2, and we finally get our answer of 21. Great. Let's build on what we just learned and move on to our next problem, which is going to be similar. So for our next problem, let's take a look at 37 plus 4. As we've been doing before, let's add the right side first, then move on to the left. So on the right, we have 7 plus 4, which is going to give us 11. But as we have seen before, when we get a double-digit answer, we carry the number on the left and place it on top of the left column. And then we simply add the left column, which is 1 plus 3, which is going to give us 4. And we get the answer to our problem, 37 plus 4 equals 41. Great. You'll see that as we do more of these problems, you'll start to get better at them. For our next problem, let's look at 65 plus 9. Don't let the bigger numbers scare you because the same rules apply. So the first thing we want to do is add the right side, which is 5 plus 9. If you count up from 9 and add 5, you'll get 14. So you leave the number 4 since it's on the right and carry the 1 on top of the 6. Now, we move on to the left side of the problem since we have solved the right side, and on the left we have 1 plus 6, which is going to give us 7 if you count up from 6 and add 1, and we get the total of 74. Now, for our next problem, we're going to change things up a bit, and I don't want the extra number to scare you or intimidate you because the same technique still applies. So, for our next problem, we're going to have our first double digit plus double digit problem, which is going to be 15 plus 12. And as we've seen before in our previous problems, the same rules still apply. We still start on the right side and then move on to the left side. Great. So let's get started. First, we want to solve 5 plus 2. which if you count them from 5 and add 2, you get 7. Now, we simply just move on to the left column and add 1 plus 1, which gives us 2. And we get the answer to our problem, 15 plus 12 equals 27. Great. Just in case you're getting a bit confused or unsure of what's going on, let's do a few more problems so you can get the hang of this. So, for our next problem, let's take a look at slightly bigger numbers, 45 plus 35. As we've been doing before, first, let's start on the right side by adding 5 plus 5, which is going to give us 10. And as we've seen before, when we're adding two numbers on the right side and we get a double-digit answer like 10, we simply leave the number on the right side, which is 0, and carry the 1. Now, we move on to the next column and solve it. So first, let's do 1 plus 4, which is going to give us 5. And then we take our 5 and add it with the next number under, which is 3. So 5 plus 3 equals 8. And we put that next to our 0 down here, and we get our total answer of 80. At this point, you should be very proud of yourself. We have covered and learned a lot so far. Let's just do one more of these problems so you can get the hang of this and we can move on to our next addition topic where we will continue to learn amazing things. For our next problem, let's take a look at 53 plus 38. First, let's solve the right side like we've been doing. So, 3 plus 8 is going to give us 11. And of course, we leave the number closest to the right and carry our number on the left. Now, we do 1 plus 5, which is going to give us 6. And then we do 6 plus 3, which is going to give us 9. And we put that next to our 1, and we have the total of 91. Great. I hope you've been following along with me. And remember, if there is anything you didn't understand or you're a bit confused with anything we went over, I recommend you rewatch the video or rewind the parts you are a bit unclear on. And if that doesn't help, you can always email me and I will try my best to do anything I can to help you. I appreciate you watching this video, and on the next lecture, we will do a small quiz of 5 problems just to practice the things we learned in this video.